Kia ora koutou, I'm Sarah Tuck, one of the co-founders of Coliberate. It's really lovely to be here. Thank you for being here too. I'm here today to share a little bit about our foundations and how we built a solid foundation to prepare us for growth. So thank you so much for being here with us. Coliberate has been running for about 5 years now, and in our first somewhat like 1 to 2 years of operating our business, we really focused a lot on our internal processes. We looked at what are the systems and the structures we could put in place to ensure that we are measuring our impact, keeping on making an impact, connecting to our purpose, and making sure that our people are happy doing their work at the same time. A strong foundation for Coliberate looks like really strong interpersonal relationships between everyone within our team, to ensure that they can work really harmoniously together and ensure that they are connected to one another, and to reduce the amount of conflict and tension that can happen between just the little things that build up. So there's a strong emphasis on checking in with one another and debriefing moments that are a little bit sticky, to ensure that we can continue to deliver on our impact, basically. I think leadership is a really big emphasis for us as well. I know that Bob and I, as managing directors, really want our team to feel supported and to feel like their ideas are really valued, and that we really do trust them to do the work that they're set out to do. So we really try to create that sense of trust. And we really want them to trust us as well. So knowing that we are preparing for growth and inviting them along with us, bringing them on the journey, not pretending like we've got all the answers. We know that all of us have the right amount of ideas to make sure that Coliberate grows in a really sustainable way. I remember when we acquired our first corporate client, it was somewhat of we'd tried and tested our service and course quite a lot, so we knew that it really worked. It just didn't have any evidence with an actual organisation yet. So we really had to bluff our way through this meeting, knowing that the impact that we knew it would have within this organisation will meet the outcomes this organisation wanted. But we just didn't quite have the evidence to prove it yet. We drew some inspiration from one of my co-founders' dad, who actually runs a printing factory. And way back when, he realised that a lot of people were going to a different printing factory because they could make books. And he was like, I'm pretty sure I could make books if I really tried. So he took one of the sample books and put it on his front counter, and someone came in and said, I want one of those, and ended up putting through a big order, and he had to hurry up and find a way to make it work to meet the requirements of this client, and it ended up scaling his business in a big way. So we really drew inspiration from people in our family who have run businesses before, and other organisations in our community who are doing similar things to really acquire the customer base we needed to prove that our impact was going to reach. So we basically did a similar thing where we were absolutely yes, assertively yes, we can meet on those outcomes and let's make it work. And then you kind of turn in and go, oh no, now we need to hire staff, and now we actually need to roll it out, and let's make sure that we use this opportunity for growth and make sure that we can really work with it. It's also where a few of our biggest expenses, a few of our most expensive mistakes have come from, where I'll be on the phone to a corporate client and they would have just confirmed a program in Auckland, and I'll say, no, we'll buy the flights, and they'll say, are you sure? Because we've got corporate partners. And we'll go, no, we'll buy the flights. It's on us, this one, even though we don't actually have the money to pay for our own flights. But lots of learnings along the way, and actually just laughing at a lot of our mistakes has really created lots of stories and fun, and we can reflect on those and grow from those, and don't let them hold us back or tie us down. Setting up for a strong business, it was really important that we had lots of mentors, personal and company-wide mentors, to ensure that what we are doing is improving and increasing. And we've had some really awesome people who have contributed their time especially towards strategy, making sure that we are reaching towards our purpose and having the best direct, most effective and efficient way to get there. One of our mentors talked a little bit about, we were talking to her over lockdown, and we were saying how we're really glad that we've got this solid foundation where we really trust that our team trusts the leadership of the organisation and that the organisation is going to survive this pandemic. And that we believe we're this kind of solid structure that can kind of withstand anything that comes our way. And she challenged us and was like, why do you want to be a solid foundation? Why don't you rather think of yourselves and your organisation as a wobble board in which you're all standing on, and what are the core muscles of your organisation, which means that you have the strength to withstand anything that comes along, because you can't guarantee that you're going to survive this pandemic or this lockdown or being a face-to-face service in you know, one of the probably the most vulnerable sectors at this time. So what are those core muscles and what do they look like? And when we really looked at it, we realised that we'd spent the last few years actually developing a sense of adaptability and flexibility, especially each client has a different request, a different need that they want us to meet. And so how can we adapt our services even slightly to make sure that we keep delivering on people's outcomes, especially the outcomes that are really specific to their organisation and their purpose and what they need to get out of it. So our core muscles are very connected to our core values as well. So bold, open, empathetic collaborations. Those are our 4 values, and we really stand by creating a bold service, knowing that working in the wellness industry, it is a competitive industry, especially within organisations. There's a lot of people with various different approaches, but it's all leading towards the same outcome, wanting people to be well. So how can we be really bold in our approach, knowing that skills training really does empower people to go back out into their workplaces and communities and actually use the skills. Open, we're a very open organisation. We love to share our highs and lows, wins, losses, failures, successes. I think it's really important to back yourselves in those and knowing that you don't have to hide all of those successes and losses, that they are opportunities for growth. Empathetic, we're very empathetic of all people. I think empathy is a very incredible skill that you can learn to be able to help people provide more support, and we're very empathetic of all of our clients and their situations, and it helps us create a really great way to be able to help further. In collaborations, we're all about partnering with people, wanting to do values exchange rather than trading money all the time. So how can we offer our services and vice versa so we can both gain? That's really important to us. Yeah, so looking at how our actions really reflect our values is really important. How do you know when the right time to scale is? It's a really interesting question. I think a lot of the times, especially in startups and social enterprises especially, you have lots of opportunities incoming all the time that could potentially skyrocket you into a direction that is just full of potential. And how do you know when to actually leverage on those opportunities, and which way do you leverage them? Which way do you go? I think having strategy is a really clear way to ensure that you are growing at a time where you actually can sustain yourself. There was a time maybe 2 years ago, we'd been running mental health first response and mental health first aid for about a year, and we'd seen some incredible impact, and we'd just started to get our first competitors, St. John's, who really did undercut our market because they came in at a much lower price point. We were looking at how we make the course more national throughout more of New Zealand and train more people in a short amount of time. How do we grow? And when we looked into it, we realised that we just weren't quite ready yet. We didn't really have the efficiency of training people really quickly. We had some really solid facilitators, but we knew that it would take a little bit longer than what necessarily a contract would need to train more staff and provide on that maximum capacity or on that scale. So we kind of turned back in and looked a little bit more about how we were nurturing our purpose and making our systems and structures and lots of things within internally to be much more effective and efficient. So therefore when another opportunity came along, which it will. Opportunities always will come along. You don't have to take the first one that comes along. It's just knowing how does it fit with your purpose, and then taking it in that moment when you're ready, sitting on it and going with it. When Coliberate first started, we were running a wellbeing space in the middle of Wellington City. We're running this for about 18 months, and it was about a year in when we started to look into mental health first aid, because we needed more training ourselves in how to support people who were coming through that space. And when this opportunity came along for Jodie to fly up to Auckland to do this Train the Trainer course, and it was $3,000, which we didn't have $3,000 at the time. And we didn't know whether to continue pouring a lot of our energy into the wellbeing space, knowing that this was creating impact, or whether to take this opportunity, knowing that that would also create a whole new industry in New Zealand, because it hasn't been running before. Well, actually, it had been running before on a very small scale in South Auckland, but it needed some energy and someone to kind of propel it and trampoline it further. And we were just unsure about what to do. So then we're like, let's have a strategy day about it, and actually let's create a really wide lens around whether we should take this opportunity or not. We call it slowing down to speed up. It's always really important to look at the whole scope of what this opportunity could be, knowing that if you run into something, maybe that will have that could be great, but yeah, we tend to always just sit back, look at the ramifications, what's the wins, what's the losses, what's the opportunities, what's the gains, what's all of that. In the end, we were like, let's do it, and borrowed $3,000, sent Jodie out, did the training, and then next thing we know, we launch mental health first aid and triple our profits in about 6 months. So you just never know. We really did put a big focus into acquiring some really solid clients and customers from the get-go, clients that would really back us and refer us, and knowing that we could really nurture that relationship, knowing that when we had provided our services and we'd seen an impact in there, we could confidently go to another organisation and say, hey, look at the change that we had in this organisation that's similar in your industry. How about we do it here too? In terms of procurement and attaining more customers and contracts, we tend to really use case studies as a way to get our foot in the door and create personal relationships with people within the organisation who are seeking a change to happen within their workplace culture and environment, and then let that escalate itself up through various connections within the organisation. We've been through one procurement process, which we didn't get, but I think the energy and effort into doing the application created a whole bunch of content, copy, collateral that we've been able to basically just send direct to some people within organisations. So it really did prep us to be able to create an easier pathway and access. Probably one of the biggest challenges as a founder and a leader in hiring staff and being so young is this sense of imposter syndrome that all of us founders have struggled with, in terms of not knowing if we're doing the right thing, if we're actually going in the right direction, not feeling enough. I think also with an arts background, working in a corporate space in mental health, there's definitely a long line of having to prove our value, prove our worth. That's not linked to having a qualification in either of those. And I think the main thing is really, even if you don't experience imposter syndrome, you really have to back yourself. You really have to believe in the work that you're doing. I really believe in Coliberate services and the impact that we do have, and I really do believe in this impact that we want to create. There was this one moment where Bob and I got invited to, Bob got invited to speak on this panel. The panel was all around sales approaches, so what is our approaches to acquire customers and how do we make sales, and the people on the panel ranged from people working in multi-million-dollar companies all the way through to us who's like making a dent, not making millions of dollars, but making a significant dent into a lot of organisations and making a lot of sales. We both left that panel not convinced that we were representing ourselves in the way that we believe that we could be represented. There's a real humbleness where we would tend to just downplay the impact that we're having, knowing that we don't want to seem like we're arrogant or gloating or pretending like we are bigger and more valuable and better than anyone else. So there's this tendency to be like, oh, we just, make $500,000 a year average, and we just kind of do this thing called mental health first response. It's really easy just to talk ourselves down. We left this panel talk, we sat down and had coffee. Bot picked up her coffee and it slipped through her fingers and spilt, and then spilt all over me. We laughed and laughed and laughed, and we thought about this as kind of representative of how we feel about ourselves in this moment as like absolute mess. And we made this commitment to each other where we would not talk ourselves down anymore, and that we would actually embody our value of being bold and stand up for ourselves and back ourselves, especially in things like panel talks where there's clearly people who have had huge success, but that doesn't devalue or minimize our success. It's just different. Part of backing yourself is backing your background. A lot of the time people would be like, oh, do you have a degree in psychology? We would be like, no, we have a degree in theatre making. And having to really back that foundation as the reason why we're just as valid to be working in this way as anyone else. Knowing that the processes of creating theatre is all about being creative, being yourself, feeling a sense of purpose and belonging. And actually, those are really transferable into workplaces. Workplaces are also a place where people need to feel belonging, connection, and purpose. Why can't they have a lot of those tools and tactics and ways of doing that in that environment? How can you transfer those into that? Interested in transferring the value of those into a workplace environment. Yeah. I think also a part of my personal approach is to not take things too seriously. Is not to take things too seriously. My approach to my work is very silly. I like to be very fun. I like to run to the printer in the office. I like to speak a little bit louder than people are used to. I like to clown around a lot, and I think it just provides a lightness that's really necessary. And as soon as you invite people within organisations to think in that way and to have more lightness in terms of connecting to themselves and others, it creates a lot of magic and care, and people realise that they're human. Yeah. And that's a bold approach, because people aren't used to laughing at work. People are really used to being really serious and having to leave all of their personal life at the door, leaving it there, walking into work, putting on a brave face, and then leaving and picking it up on the way out. And I think after lockdown, that's just not functional anymore. We just don't know how to do that anymore. Our private lives are really mixed with our work lives, and it doesn't have to be so separate. People are looking for opportunities to buy into. People want good solutions to problems that they care about, and they see that social enterprise is an ethical way to actually get there. I think that more and more people are buying products from social enterprises and buying services from social enterprises because they know that they're not out to make money and contribute hugely to our capitalist society, that they're actually wanting to make a dent in the good of the world. Coliberate are definitely ready to scale up at the moment. We feel like our wobble board and our foundation is really strong. We have really maximised and created really efficient training processes, so we're able to recruit and hire and train people relatively quickly, which means that when we pursue big contracts, especially, that means when we pursue big contracts, we can easily train and recruit and ensure that we can deliver on those contracts really quickly. We really hope that we can double, even just next year, double how many people that we have trained. Thank you so much for being here with me today, and I hope that there is some insights that have come from our beginning journeys and can encourage you to step up, take a bold move and start your own social enterprise or shift to a social enterprise and do business that way.